Good evening and welcome to this special Zoomcast edition of our Voices in the Field podcast series brought to you by the APUS Sports Management Program. My name is Dr. Jim Reese, and as you can see, I'm joined by my colleagues, Dr. Brittany Jacobs and Dr. Brian Freeland. And in a few minutes, we'll bring in our special guest, Mr. Sonny Vaccaro. But first, Britt, you've been working hard this week with some members of our team to organize some questions from the registration process that came in, and you're also going to be working on some live questions tonight. So would you be kind enough to share with our audience how that's going to work?
Absolutely. So we're going to collect live questions throughout this entire webinar. And if you have a question, go ahead down to that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and enter your question there. We'll then be able to pull questions and ask those to Sonny throughout this entire presentation. Now, we probably won't get to every question. So if your question isn't answered, don't feel bad. But we will try to answer as many as we can throughout this presentation. Without further ado, Jim, back over to you to introduce our man of the hour.
Thank you, Britt. And yes, now joining us live, the soul man himself, Mr. Sonny Vaccaro.
Oh,
there he is.
I'm okay. I'm live and in person from Palm Springs, California, and I'm so happy. I'm looking forward to this day for a while. In fact, a couple of years, Jim.
It's been a while, Sonny.
We got it together, and I'm anxiously ready to answer any questions that anybody has on their mind, or even if it's not on their mind, they can make it up, and I'll probably give them an answer.
I have no doubt. So now, in a few minutes, I'm just going to share a little bit of some of your accomplishments over the course of your career. But would you like to just introduce yourself briefly to our audience?
Yeah, my name's Sonny Vaccaro. I don't take no for an answer, but the truth of the matter, what you're watching today, I come up with an answer to a question that was given me 40 years ago about putting a guy in a shoe. That's what I'm going to tell them. I answered the question, I guess.
Well, that sounds great. We're all looking forward to that. So now, just to touch, and this is just a few things that we're going to talk. We just don't have time to include them all, but a few things that you've done over the course of your career. And being from Pennsylvania, of course, I'm familiar with the Dapper Dan Classic. That was the first all-star nation, recruiting high school players nationwide to have an all-star game. And it was also the first time coaches were able to recruit and evaluate talent at one location instead of traveling all around the country. So, and you almost got Kareem, I heard. So that would have been really special if you would have got Kareem.
And that was the one I wanted the first year, the first turn down I got, and I got some others later on in my life. But the game went on, and we sold out the thing in 1965, and it was the first All-Star game in America. There's no question about that. And
it has grown to many events, including the McDonald's, All-American game as well. So you were also the first person to sign coaches to shoe contracts, which brilliant, ensured that the teams would be wearing your brand. At the time, they were Nikes. So that was another major accomplishment. So
all we had to do was pay them. So the kids could ideally wear the shoes, so we can sell, because it wasn't we were paying the coaches for them to wear the shoe to sell those shoes. I figured out, well, they'll make the kids wear the shoes. The kids will see the shoes. Nike was pretty successful doing that, way ahead of their time.
I think it worked out pretty well. So
yeah, I did. I do.
And of course, we know about the Michael Jordan signing because of the movie and all. These are in addition to that. You also found another pretty good high school player named Kobe Bryant, and you were able to, which is a whole separate movie by itself there, by the way. But I believe you knew his dad, Jelly Bean. Is that correct? And that's how that happened.
Yes. Not only did I know him, his father was the MVP in the 1972 Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic, and his mother's brother, Chubby Cox, played in the 1973. So I sort of got to meet Kobe before he was born, because I had the bloodlines there playing in that All-Star game. So yes.
Yeah. It's funny, we talk all the time about how everything in life is about building relationships, and there's no question you've been able to do that over the course of your career. You also came, Jordan, Kobe, you came this close to signing another pretty good talent while you were at Adidas named LeBron James. And that just fell through at the last minute. But if you would have had all three, I mean, two is great, but if you would have had all three, that would have been really, really amazing. So.
Well, that would have been, but you mentioned that Adidas screwed up, and they did, and they screwed up with Michael too. So I was involved. I won one and I lost one. I got Michael for Nike. Thank God for that. And Adidas had another chance to get a great one, and they screwed that one up too. Those things are historical. That's for sure.
Well, and then most recently, your involvement with the O'Bannon lawsuit, which those of the students that are here are familiar with. Name, image, and likeness is a rather popular topic of discussion these days. And that case was the one that opened the door for athletes to be compensated for NIL. And so that's just, any one of those, Sonny, is a heck of an accomplishment. And you put all those together. It's an amazing career. You've made a very significant impact on the sport of basketball. You should be very proud.
Yeah, Jim, thank you to the audience out there. If you judge a life, and one's allowed to do that on his own, I guess, to me and my wife Pam, the most significant thing I was ever able to do is help the lawyers and the kids and Eddie O'Bannon and the thousands of other kids, that it benefited. So I think the O'Bannon thing was, the one that I'll hopefully be remembered by more than even signing Michael. Michael started it all in my life. The Dapper Dan really started, but O'Bannon was the most meaningful thing that served a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. So, all right. Speaking of the Dapper Dan, you ready for the first question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now this was mine, and I've been wanting to ask this for a long time. So, back to the Dapper Dan. That was groundbreaking. What were you thinking? What was the genesis of putting that together? What was your vision for that? And how did that whole thing get started?
1 minute or less. Basketball was not a sport that I played well in high school. I had nothing to do with basketball my whole life. And other than when I couldn't play football anymore, I helped the coach at Youngstown recruit some players because he liked my energy. But to get to your point, I thought in my mind that the most once I graduated from college, I wasn't at the university anymore. I had an idea that I saw so many great athletes, basketball players, because I was now coaching at Trafford High School, and they were getting ignored by getting scholarships and by getting recognized, because Pennsylvania, among most of the states, was known for the football players, but we had some great athletes. So I went to a friend of mine named Pat DeCesar, who I had grown up with, who had a background of working promotions in music. And I went to him with an idea. I said, I'll tell you what, I have an idea. I think we have enough kids in this state to show the world that we can play basketball along with football, and baseball was basically a second choice of people in the early 50s and 60s in Pennsylvania. And we did the Dapper Dan game before anyone thought of it. Pennsylvania kids against the rest of the world. So I had 10 from Pennsylvania and 10 from America that I did not know, I did not see. I used to read the books about them. So Jim, that was an idea too, that just morphed into being 13 years ahead of the McDonald's game, which carries. Pam and I left everything we started to pursue the O'Bannon case in 2007, 8, and I shut down everything we did. We did the camp, the ABCD camp, the Dapper Dan game, and the big time tournament, and we looked for a plaintiff. We found Eddie, O'Bannon.
The timing was right for that, with what happened.
Yes.
With Ed just talking to a friend about a video game, and it kind of went from there. So hey, how about we do a question from one of our students? Let's bring Britt back in. And Britt, what do you have for us?
All right. Hi, Sonny. We've got a question from our audience. This one comes from Annalise Lido. She says, Sonny, how did you manage to stay resilient when you were surrounded by no's and constant negativity?
You know what? And that's so not, I never had that. You got me for 1 second. You don't pay attention to it. If you believe in yourself and you believe in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, that can't stop you. You can only be stopped by not being able to do the job. And when someone tells you you can't do it without knowing who in the hell you are and what your idea was and why you believe you can do it. So I've had a lot of those so-called people in my life. I think I've faced many of them throughout the years, whether it was a Dapper Dan, whether it was, whatever it was along the way. And obviously, at one point in time, then Nike didn't think I had anything more to do and they let me go. So I actually got fired from the people who started me, but that didn't stop me from going on to the next step. So I appreciate that, but you can't let people guide your life, I think.
That's excellent. And then I have one more from the audience for you, Sonny. This one came in a couple weeks ago, actually. It's from Troy Massey. And he says, what was your biggest regret in your career? And if you had a chance to fix it, would you, or would you do the same thing over?
Well, that's a good question. That's asked a lot. Doing it over, or regret it. I can't regret it because I must have believed in it and I wanted to do it. I failed to do it. I wasn't able to accomplish what I wanted to do, but it was not regretful. I mean, I've had setbacks. I mean, that's for dang sure. So, and doing things over, there's nothing wrong with that if you continue with the same sincerity you had in your mind. It's all about you. It's all about that person. You can't let a setback do it. And you certainly can't let someone else's opinion, just strictly based on whatever they're basing it on, stop you from thinking. And I hope that answered his question.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Sonny. All right. This question comes from Murtaza Jelani. She said, you were integral in the commercialization of sports. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like when you started compared to today?
Well, when I started, there weren't a lot of good ideas, I guess. You were stagnated into the world you lived in. And you certainly didn't have the assets that we have today by all the communication we can do immediately. So it's a good question, but everything's relative to the time you're in. I think something I'd like to say, I've heard a few times by other people much smarter than I am that said, the Jordan thing was not really about an athlete. It was more about marketing. And I think I didn't think that when I said those words. I thought about helping Nike sell a couple more shoes because an individual was going to wear them. So, but marketing came out of that. And we were a precursor in 1984 to what Silicon Valley became. Now Silicon Valley is like out of it and we're getting, artificial information. You know what I'm saying here. All this new stuff coming along that we don't know how it is, but we got computers smarter than us.
Yes.
And what has to be done, everything you have to adjust. It's a reality of life now. So when I started, before me, I mean, look at Barbie doll. I mean, my God, Barbie and Ken, who would have thunk, right? But it was an idea and it lasted through a whole, generations of children to grow up to adults. And we're watching something now that was actually, I don't know what it was, because I mean, Barbie, and I'm using that to give an analysis to the people watching this, that something may seem ridiculous or silly, but it isn't, because there's an audience for everyone. And it's a new thing that brings in the new invention, the new thought, the new movement. Watching singing developed. I love entertainment. I love music. The second fantasy of my life is watching great entertainers act. And I've watched the transition. I can go back way to Leadbelly and country music, and then the hip hop and all the things we get until we get to today. And then it's all different. The same people, the same types. I mean, we just lost. Some of your audiences are going to know who Tony Bennett was, but he lasted 60 years and 70 years of his music, and it'll continue. So you have to adjust out there now, audience. You have to think of something that's relative to not only today, what the hell can be good tomorrow? That's what it is.
That's incredible. Thank you, Sonny. Jim, I'm going to bring you out to do a little trivia. Let's see how well our attendees know Sonny Vaccaro.
Yes, let's do that. Now, while we're waiting for that to come up, here's how this is going to work. To answer this question, the audience, you like that, Sonny?
It's
To answer
interesting.
this question, and just go into at the bottom center part of your panel, you'll see the chat. Just go into the chat
You want
button.
me to go to it?
No, this is for the rest of our audience.
Oh,
to,
okay, good,
answer
because
the-
I
answer
can't,
the
okay,
trivia
go
question.
ahead.
Yep. And so if you want to go ahead and put your response in there, the chat, and we're going to pull one of the correct answers out, and you're going to win a prize. And we're going to send you a link to a form that you can fill out and claim your prize. So this first question: which of the following companies did Sonny not work for? Adidas, Converse, Nike, and Reebok. So give a few seconds, and then we'll bring the name of a winner. With several hundred people watching, I can only imagine how they're getting flooded with responses right now. So
I'm looking at all the ones picking them down here.
yeah, well, we'll come back with the name
Okay.
of the
winner.
winner for
Go
the
ahead.
trivia question, and we'll just move on to the next thing. So the next question is from actually, this is one of the questions that I had in my mind as well, but it's from Andrew Marshall, and he said it better than the way I was thinking of it. And this kind of ties into what one of the questions you just answered. But did fear of failure ever cross your mind?
No, never in my life. And I'm not saying it to be bravado or here. That's a fact. I mean, I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have signed Michael or started the Dapper Dan game. But if you just take one's life, and each of you should out there, and wherever you are in your 19, 20, 25-year-old, on the whole, our pupils are here, Jim, but you can't let it stop you. I mean, I thought I'd be successful in doing whatever it was. I believed in my next journey, and when there was none there, something created itself. I mean, when you look at the total of my life and anyone's life, there are steps you're going to look back. What they can do now is look back on the 19 years or 20 years previous to this and see where they've gotten. Right now, they're in a pretty goddamn good school. Their life has started now. You're not, you had a start on something. But no, I never believed I'd fail, and I failed. This is not like foolproof here. I've had ups and downs, buddy. Most of my life, and I'm still having them today. I mean, you adjust and you go on. You adjust and you go on. But that's the only thing I can say. Just and some people say, well, that's so trite, or that's people say, believe in yourself. Well, if you don't, and if you allow bravado to speak for you, if you allow others to think what they want you to be, I don't know what the success rate in that is, really. I don't, because the only way you can answer yourself when something goes wrong is no one forced me to do this. I did this because I wanted to do it.
But Sonny, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, because it's really unique. No, I'm serious. It's really unique to have that, because there are a lot of people with a lot of ideas that, like starting a business, for example, and there's a lot of risk involved in a lot of that. And you just seem to be fearless. And that's just truly amazing to me, because most people are not willing to take some of those risks.
Well, we can't speak for most people. We can't speak for anybody, Jim. But basically, if you're asking me a question to this group of people, if maybe nothing they take away from tonight's story is, yeah, I didn't let that happen. And I'm telling you guys, I'm 83 years old, and I'm doing a performance now to a group of very intelligent people here. And, and my mind is working. I'm not afraid of doing, I love doing it. I wish the hell we could talk for 5 more hours. I mean, but you can't do it. I think that's the most important thing one can have, other than, it's like going on America's Got Talent. No one knows what the hell is going to happen until they open their mouth or sing their song or jump off the ledge and, and get caught by their uncle. So these things happen every day in life. It's the ones that, turn around the car and get out. Don't turn around the car, keep driving.
It's truly amazing and it's important to stay positive, but there's a certain level of risk there, and it's just truly amazing.
Yeah, there is.
But let's see if we can bring Brian back in for his question. Oh, there he is. Brian, take it away.
Hey, what happened?
Thank you. Yeah, a little technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience.
Go
So,
ahead, Brian.
as a huge basketball fan and a former high school coach, and I still work with basketball players at the high school level, you've seen so much talent at the high school grassroots level. I know our audience has a lot of coaches, people that work in athlete development, trainers. Can you help us give some advice maybe, or shed some light on what differentiates the athletes, the high school athletes that you see that actually make it to the pros versus some that don't? What are some of those intangibles?
In my mind, for every one of those kids I made a judgment on to do something with, or take them to the camp, or sign them a contract, or whatever, invest my life or my company, whoever I'm working for, life, it's the guts that they have. It's how much they believe in themselves. The truth of the whole matter from Jordan comes down to one thing. I only remembered that shot. That's all I remember. I didn't give a damn about Michael Jordan. I wasn't gonna. He didn't play in the Dapper Dan game. Dean Smith worked for the Converse. They wore Converse shoes. Michael was made public, even while he was playing there, that he wanted to wear Adidas shoes. That shot, I was rooting for Georgetown that day. They were one of our selling thousands of shoes. Patrick Ewing and two other kids on in that game that I watched them beat. They played in the Dapper Dan game. I had a Georgetown kid in that game, as long as I had a game. If they were good enough, they played in the Dapper Dan. So it was the most ironic thing ever happened in my life, because the key to when it happened was they asked me a question. I said, and this is basically what I said, give it to the kid. What kid? The kid from North Carolina, Michael Jordan. You realize that I wasn't smart enough to say Michael Jordan right away. I always, and I still think of Michael as that 18-year-old kid. When they watched that video in that movie, I didn't rely on that movie. I didn't see that movie when I said those words, did I, ladies and gentlemen? No, I couldn't have, because that wasn't out there. I only saw the game. I saw 18 seconds and he took the shot. And then the movie, when Matt goes through and explains it, for the 18 seconds, is brilliant. But I'm saying to you, it's the guts, the will to win. There's always something. Kobe Bryant said, most of them I can remember what the first thing was that I knew they were different. If you read anything about, Kobe and LeBron and whatever, and Tracy, they just didn't get as much, but I knew that I liked them before I even thought I had to know why I liked them. They made an impression on me. They did. So, and I hope that answers your question. It's not something that I can relay and tell these people to look for. I thought having the guts to take the shot, or the sense to make the pass, or heck, I'm better than all these people. I'm going to kick their butt. And if you look at the great ones, they say it out loud. I've been watching the thing on Wilt Chamberlain, which your audience probably doesn't even remember. When you look at somebody, I don't know who in the world could have ever been a greater basketball player than Wilt Chamberlain. So I don't get caught up in goats, because I think basketball players specifically, they go by the generation they play in, because that game has changed more than any other game, Brian. So these kids are different. So one thing I'd like to say, and Brian, do you have another one real quick? And I'll say it when you're done.
No, this is perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The one kid, and there's a video on him named Ben Wilson. He's one kid that I never got to see play a college game or a high school game or whatever, because I saw him at the ABCD camp when I first took it over in 1984. And he got he was the number one player come out of nowhere. And the first ABCD camp that I was involved with, I only saw him that couple of days, didn't know who in the hell he was. He was from Chicago. I wasn't as deep into it. It was my first year. We were just sponsoring at that time, Nike was. And I fell in love with him. And then I fell in love with him. And I was picking him to play for, I wanted him to play in the Dapper Dan because then we had other all-star games. And I was staying in touch. And I used to call him on a payphone because there was no cell phones in 1980, whenever heck that was. And he got murdered. And the story Benji is the saddest story in my life because he never had an opportunity even to get beyond the high school phase. I never got to know him. I only knew what I watched, I fell in love with, and I was sad that it happened. Obviously, I was sad that anything bad happened, Brian. You would for any athlete. So Benji's the kid I wish I could have watched grow, because at that time, in my mind, that was before Michael. He was the kid. He was the kid that had everything, and ended up murdered. Go ahead, take me to another one.
That's perfect. I really appreciate your response. I'm going to hand it over to Jim.
Thank you, Brian. And let's go back to Britt for a question from one of our students. Britt, would you share another one with us, please?
Sure would. Before we do that, I want to call out our winner of the first trivia question, Philip Gaddy. Congratulations. You're going to be getting some AMU or APU swag. So you're going to receive a direct message. So make sure you look out for that and then fill out the link so that we can get that swag to you. All right, Sonny, next question we have for you. This is coming from one of our live audience members right now. They say, it's with great admiration that they address you today. The inspiration that you have provided throughout the years has been invaluable, and they're grateful for the opportunity to hear you speak. As they embark on their career in marketing, they'd be immensely grateful for any advice or thoughts on contacts as to how to get into the field. Your wealth of experience as an accomplished entrepreneur is invaluable, and they want to learn from your expertise.
Well, I would say to the person who asked me that question, I don't know what field you're in, so I'll just assume you have an idea what you're going to be, what you're majoring in, all that sort of stuff. At this age, and I don't know exactly what age, some of these are, I would make friends with like-minded people. Because I've done this, then I would make friends with people that have done well, that have nothing to do with anything I understand or understood, to learn why they had this idea. Where did this come from? See, I think ideas are the lifeline of anyone that wants to succeed in doing anything in a field that's what's created, whether you're going to be a designer. How do you do that? Which one is more ridiculous than the other one? But man, is that something. Because that's, as I watched all these years, young lady, I watched, that's what was important to me. I paid attention to it. I have a lot of friends that I have nothing in common with along the way. And this, to me, helped me become more well-rounded, not as smart in what they were doing, but trying to understand what the hell made you think of that? What a good idea. Because that's basically what people are asking me today. What made you think of that? And I sort of, told, Brian, that's Michael was just visually watching that. I was there in person, 18 seconds. It's something you don't know that'll help you learn more. And then once you got it, once you got faith in yourself, take it to the limit. Take it to the limit. Go for it. You get no's. Hell, I've had 10,000 no's. That's what you do. No is the most popular word in American language. No one wants to admit it. No, no, no. Don't do this. Don't do that. No, no, no. But then somebody's going to say, you know what? Yeah, that's a pretty good story. That's a pretty good movie. That's a pretty good song. You know how many songs that are written every day? You know how many, shows we have, you go to the movies every year, thousands. But then somebody writes the right words. Somebody sings the right tune. somebody does the great poetry, and somebody will think of something to take the Silicon Valley or go beat that thing that has that answer to everything. I don't know what to call that thing, but the intelligent guy. I don't know if I can compete. I don't know if I can compete against him, her, or it.
Right, exactly.
Go ahead.
No, that's amazing. We have one more question from the audience that just came in. This one is from Vaughn Breet. It says, in the famous speech in Air movie that you made about MJ, how much of that was fiction, or did it really go down the way that the movie portrayed it?
No, that it's not totally fiction, because I did speak, but I spoken those words many times to many kids and many groups of people, especially kids. They were the encouraging words. Those words, that day we did all talk. Mrs. Jordan wasn't able to do what Viola did either that day, but she was able to back up her son. The most important thing that day was to make sure that contract was a thing. So there were liberties taken, but there were no blatant lies or taken out of context. Some things didn't happen, but they weren't the way it was portrayed. But I like to think, as I'm doing with this audience today, I've never made this speech before. It's not a speech, it's a question and answer thing, and never said what I said to the last question you had. So the movie is real. I was the guy involved. All the other people involved knew Michael or close to Michael, and we all got it done. But Rob Strasser and Peter Moore, I think they finally got their day in the sun, because Peter Moore designed that shoe. That happened. I was around when all that was. He did that. No one else did it. And that logo at the end, when you read, ladies and gentlemen, that logo will live forever, and Peter Moore will do it. And the Rob Strasser, they cut him a little short. They didn't give him enough time, as far as I'm concerned, because Rob was my liaison. Rob believed in me. I didn't feel that way well then. Why would I have? I was doing the colleges, and no one really knew Phil that well. But he was the man who made the answers, and he did. Even though there was doubt until the end, that actually happened. There seems to be seen that really were the turning point. But each time there was something different, there got closer. So the movie, there are no lies in there. No one killed anybody that way. But that's what happened. But I do love to make speeches, and I guess I'm pretty good at it. I just come out of my mouth. I don't know what the hell I'm saying sometimes, but I mean what I'm saying, though.
I love it, Sonny. I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Sonny, you have the line of the night so far. You said when you were working with Michael, you were going to sell a couple shoes.
Well,
yeah, I think you accomplished your goal there.
Well, we did, but if you go back and take everything into context, we all that number up there, was a real number. But who in hell thought that? We thought if we'd sell, 1 million or whatever the heck it was would be great. Phil's that we were just looking to get into the game, to have an athlete out there, because no one, including me, had any idea what was going to happen. Michael's not the most charismatic human being in the world. Michael had his faults as a person. I mean, all that. But what he was the most dynamic person playing a sport that was transferable to everybody. We can't go out and play baseball by ourselves, or soccer by ourselves, or tennis by ourselves. But we can play basketball all by ourselves at that pool, out in the street somewhere, and go shoot and make it reverse. He gave us an image of, damn, this is out of the world. He transferred, I was talking about goats, all that. Michael's the GOAT. But I don't know if the GOAT in basketball. I know he's the GOAT in marketing. No one will ever be able to do again what the Jordan shoe did. They'll be selling that shoe when all of us are gone and the remains are wherever heck they are. But that shoe will live till there ain't no more us's.
No question about it. No question about it. Sonny, you said you touched on another area that as teachers, that we talk about all the time. And we tell our students this over and over, because our business is it's a really small circle if you think about it. And if you don't, if you don't know someone somewhere, you know someone that knows someone there. And you touched on networking again a little bit earlier, and building, meeting people, getting to know people, getting your name out there, exchanging business cards. That's one of the keys to, because our field is so hard to get into. So it's great. I mean, you're saying a lot of great things tonight, but the fact that you keep touching on market or on networking is great, because we talk about that in class all the time. So
Well, I'm glad, because I think that's the only reason I survived. I mean, real quick, another story for your audience is I analyzed my wife. I don't analyze Pam. I'm even enamored by my wife. Okay. But I analyze my life as the old days. We used to hitchhike. And I used to hitchhike as a kid to get from this town to that town, because I didn't have a car and all that. So in my life, I finally owned a car, and I got in it one day and I start driving, and I drive down to the block, and I pick up Jim, and I didn't know who Jim was, and I said, "Where are you going?" "Well, I'm going to Pitcairn, which is the next town down," and I drop him off. But in that drive, we'd talk about something, and I drop him off, and I'd go pick up somebody else. I've been picking up people, hitchhikers, all my life, and they all added to my life. So when you say networking, that's what I did. I made a point, a natural point. It wasn't like I wrote a note to myself. To when people came to camp, I'd go meet them. If there were just mom, dad bringing kids and need, pictures with somebody, they got them. Because you don't know who it is that's going to remember whatever it was that you told them that helped them, and also helps yourself. So I owe my success to the mothers and fathers and guardians and teachers and coaches of those thousands and thousands of kids who participated in all of my events over these years. They put them on airplanes, they drove them there, they took buses to come to these, and he trusted a stranger. I didn't know any of them. So I owe my life of this particular world I've lived in to someone that didn't know me. I feel that's what networking does. They introduce me, and pretty soon you have a whole thing of introduces. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but you know what? Even if it doesn't, it was meaningful to you at that time.
Oh, that's a really powerful message. I appreciate you sharing that story. That's it's great words of wisdom. So let's see if we can go and do another, give a few more prizes away here. Let's go to another trivia question if we can. There we go. And again, you can just go into the chat box to provide the answers here, but to answer the trivia question. So which of the following does Sonny consider his proudest moment? Signing Michael Jordan, signing Kobe Bryant. Well, we couldn't. You didn't sign LeBron James, so that one's out, right? Right. Or the O'Bannon case. That should have said almost signing LeBron James.
Right. Almost signing a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's the the interesting thing, Jim. That almost never wins, though, does he?
Michael Jordan has a great commercial. It talks about all the number of times he's failed taking the last shot. And so you're never going to succeed on shots you don't take, that kind of thing. And so that's a great message as well. So
yes, it is.
Britt, do we have, and while we're waiting for that, the winner to come in, Britt, do we have any questions left, live ones from?
I've got both a winner and I've got some questions.
Oh, well, take it away.
All right, James Boyce, congratulations for winning our trivia. You will receive a note, a little link. Make sure you fill out that link so you can get your swag. All right, Sonny, we got another question from the audience for you. This one comes from Kaylin Holdaway, and it says, what inspired you to pioneer the concept of endorsement deals with athletes?
Well, I don't know how what inspired me. Again, it was an idea. that they asked me to do a question and they or answer a question, and they said, we need somebody to, sell this shoe, and we're going to go to a pro as opposed to all the colleges we had. So then my thing was the kid. So, but I always knew, I believe I always knew that the entertainer, I'll put athletes in, because I just think that world's so amazing. All entertainers who impose their skills on millions and millions of people over the years, whether they're singing a song, doing an act. See, that's what always intrigued me. We have this other movie, Oppenheimer, do one of the, one way or another, something good or something bad. We have geniuses who have done things, to create things, right? And they're not even, no one even knew who the hell Oppenheimer was until the movie came out again. Remember who he was, but you remember everyone's song, that this girl sang or that guy sang. I mean, Lady Gaga, and and all these things, right? I mean, every generation, like, that. So that's the thing that you got to understand what was in my mind. What lasts? What carries on to the next generation? What do you go home talking to your neighbor about? You don't go talking to your neighbor about, we sold 20 boxes of, whatever the hell we sold a day. That we don't do that. All these big companies, we don't go home talking about the big companies. We know that they buy their product. We go home talking about, Bruce Springsteen,
Sure.
That's true.
The big names, the people that excite us.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. I mean, Beyonce is beyond comprehension anymore. I mean, but there'll be somebody else next week, next year, next month. That's that entertainment that you do for an audience never, ever leaves us. I don't know if even that answered your question. I get carried away sometimes.
I love it. No, that's excellent. Thank you so much. And we have one more, Jim, one more from the audience if we've got time.
I'm sorry. Yes, feel free to go right ahead.
All right, excellent. So Sonny, this question came from an anonymous user, so I don't actually know who they are. But they said, do you think that the commercialization of youth sport has changed the pipeline of talent? Has it excluded young people with less means from that talent identification process? And if so, do you think there's any solutions?
I don't. There's so many questions in one question. I mean,
let's start. I'll start again. Let me give you the first one.
Go.
All right. Do you think the commercialization of youth sport has changed the pipeline of talent?
Well, sure. The commercialization has, because with commercialization, you get publicity. Publicity is what changed everything. We now know these kids can play. Before, they were playing in their backyards. And I think that was even going back to the Dapper Dan. I mean, so I'll just put that together and say one served the other one well.
Interesting. All right. And then they asked, so has that commercialization excluded young people with less means from having their talent identified?
No, because there are so many opportunities now that there weren't 50, 60 years ago. On his street corner, there's a team, there's a group somewhere in that city. They can go. What they got to do is be aggressive and find a place to go to find. It's there. They got to make the move. Mom and dad do. And if mom and dad's too busy to do it, and some kids don't have two parents, whatever that is, that cannot stop you from finding the game. Go find a game. You'll find out how quick you are. In the old days, in the 50s and 60s, I can always remember, New York had all these guys, and the most popular guys were the guys that never went to college. They played on the playgrounds of New York. We have idols today, 100 years later, that they can tell you who the best street ball player was in New York in 1951. I mean, wow. But that's what happens. Go find a game. And then you know what? People will find you.
I love that. Thank you, Sonny. Over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Britt. And that takes us to the last question of the night, Sonny. We're right on schedule here.
Thank you.
And this question is from, I want to make sure I get this student, it's from Colleen Worthington. And she asks, what advice can you share with aspiring young leaders within today's sports management and marketing landscape?
Well, start right now. Okay. Whoever asked this question, you got to meet people again. I would go, it depends what you want to be involved, be an agent for the thing, for the agent, be a trainer. There are so many different jobs now. Agents, when I were verboten a long time ago, there very few of them had agents. Going back to Michael, I mean, Donald Dell was the premier owner of the company that David Falk represented at that time. And he worked for Donald Dell when they signed Michael. Then when he signed Michael, he started David Falk Enterprises. So what you have to do, you just go find this position you're looking for and find those opportunities. But there are many doors open that only look like they're closed because you're too damn lazy to go open them. Go open them. Go find out. Go spend time with people of interest. Go involve yourself with situations that, man, look at pickleball. I mean, pickleball. I laugh at pickleball. Look at this. I mean, there's an audience for pickleball. There's a certain age group that loves it. To me, this purest guy, I remember, telling my wife and my brother-in-law and all that stuff, pickleball. Thousands, millions of people. They made a business out of pickleball, which is great. Maybe that's the answer I'm trying to tell this person here. There is something that no one thought of that you might think is stupid. It's that idea in your mind. Put it to use, Jim. Tell them, just put it to go tell you, what can they do? Say no? Go get another one. That's all.
That's a great message. Yeah, I saw a match between McEnroe and Chang played Agassi and Roddick.
Well,
And at the end of the match, Agassi said, "I used to make fun of pickleball and now I'm addicted to it." And so
it's interesting.
it's really something. It's really
It's
something.
so
It is.
fun. I'm a big fan.
Well, see,
Jim, can we do our last trivia question real quick?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay, so again, folks, this is the you put your answers down in the chat. I'm sorry, I thought we had asked all three, but we obviously didn't. So this last question, what is the name of see if anybody who was paying attention tonight, what is the name of the high school all-star basketball event Sonny co-founded in Pittsburgh in 1965? McDonald's All-American Game, the Show All-Star Game, the Dapper Dan Roundball Classic, or the All-American Showcase?
All right. I'm back with our winner,
All
Bobby
right.
Perez. Bobby Perez, congratulations. Make sure you take a look for your direct messages. You will see a link there. Fill out that link so that you can make sure to get your swag. All right. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Britt. Sonny, it has been a huge pleasure for all of us. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule for us tonight. We'd love to have you back in the future. I'm sure we got some more questions, probably dozens of questions that didn't get asked. So maybe we can do a follow-up one at some point. So
all you have to do is call Pam, and Pam will figure it out.
yeah, I think I've got the cell phones on speed dial at this point, but
Okay.
But
this has been very good to me, and I hope all the people watching it, the young people watching it, got something from it. I think, leaving, for right now on this particular show with this group of people, just you're going to school, someone's paying your way, whatever it is, you got God willingly, a whole lifetime ahead of you. Go forward. Just keep going forward. And you know what? However it turns out, if you're happy with your life, it's successful. You don't have to be Kobe or Michael or LeBron or all the entertainers of the world. Be who you are. Let your mind guide you. Let your conscience be your best thing. If you believe in it, go for it. And have a happy life. Basically, happiness is not, interpreted in a way that it's financial, it's the clothes, it's the car. Happiness is what's inside of you when you go to bed at night, the family you're around, however many or none, whoever you're with at this particular time in your life and going down, and it's all over. We're only here for a cup of coffee.
yeah,
It's all over. And that's the only way I could tell your group right now, you're in a good situation, you got a good school, someone busted her butt to help you get in here, and you got then it's payback, pay forward, pay forward. And you do that not so much by paying a financial thing, by giving your all to what you're doing to open a door for somebody else. If we all do that, we're living in a crazy world now. For all the advancement we've had, I've never seen in my 83 years a harder place to be in the United States of America.
Much
We-
different than when we grew up. Yes.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
No question at all.
Yep.
But you know what? We've been successful. Hopefully we overcome whatever it is we have to overcome as a group. Whoa, we got a little
Absolutely.
deep there, Jim. Is it okay?
Thank you, Sonny. Well, before I turn it back over to Britt for some final words, there's about a dozen people behind the scenes that worked for like the last 3 to 4 weeks to put this together. And I think most, a lot of times you don't think about those folks that are working
You're
to do that.
right.
And so I just wanted to take a second and thank Andy Crow, Narissa Custer, LeVarn Gordon, Leishan Kranick, Kathleen Liebenberg, Keisha LaBianco, Rob Miller, John Price, Frank Totolo, and Amanda Wilson, and our legal team. Sonny, we can't forget the legal teams.
No. Pam stayed a lot of time with the legal team on the phone.
Yes, we special thanks to our legal team. So, but Britt, I'm going to send it back to you just for a few messages about social media, and then we'll wrap everything up.
Excellent. Sonny, thank you so much for being here. And for everybody out there, don't forget to follow AMU and APU Sports Management on Instagram. You can find us at AMU&APU Sports or on LinkedIn. And for more information about our university or program offerings, be sure to visit apus.edu. If you'd like to get in touch with the sport management department, my email is right there. It's bjacobs@apus.edu. We would love to hear from you all. If you have ideas about future webinars, if you have further questions for Sonny, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to chat with you. Now, before we go, Jim, do you want to share who our next guest in this series is going to be?
Yes, we are excited to announce that Lee Steinberg, sports agent Lee Steinberg, is going to be our next guest. So we are really excited that we could kind of lasso Lee and to make some time for us. So we've got an incredible and we've got others in the wings that we're working on. We've got an incredible group of folks that we're going to be bringing in to share their wisdom with all of our students. So.
Yeah, so make sure you follow us on social media. That's where you're going to find all the information about that next series stop, if you will. And again, thank you so much to Sonny.
Absolutely. And on behalf of all of us, of Britt and Brian and our faculty and staff, we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, and have a great night. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
Sonny.
good one.